seated, please. Thank you, Sister Vicky, for reading us the Word. If you have your Bibles with you, let's open it to the passage that was just read to us. And that is in Luke. Okay, so Luke, it's actually Luke 15:11 all the way to 32, because there's actually two prodigal sons in the story, but for the sake of time, we will be looking on just one of the sons, okay? If you are joining with us here, we are doing a series of messages about bridge builders, meaning we need to reach out to other people outside our family, our church, and we should be able to bring the love of the Lord Jesus Christ to a lot of the many people around us. And the way we do that is we have to learn how to forgive first. Make sure that we are, because we cannot be used by God until there is this big burden in our hearts about forgiveness. And the reason why we have this is because we cannot be used if we don't have forgiveness in our hearts. It's very, very important that we do not live a life filled with hatred and filled a life with so much baggages. Just to sum it up, forgiveness has nothing to do with the person who have offended you. Okay? Forgiveness has nothing to do with the person who have hurt you the most. Forgiveness is a personal thing. Telling to yourself, I give up the right to hurt that person back. I moved on, and I totally forget, and I forgive that person. That's pretty much it. Forgiveness has nothing to do with that person asking for forgiveness or asking sorry. It's nothing to do with that, because that person, for the rest of his life, might not even say sorry. But you cannot live your life having this grudge and burden, living miserable, be holding the blessings of God because of that single event in your life. No, you just have to let it go. I forgive that person and then move on. That's forgiveness. And then we also have the topic about reaching out. We must learn to reach out. And that is the context was with the Good Samaritan. Sometimes we only reach out to the person who we like, the person that we are familiar with. We do not reach out to the person that we are not comfortable with. Sometimes we are just living in our own comfort zone. So that was pretty much reaching out. And then this Sunday, I just want to talk about the prodigal son. I know this has been a familiar story. I mean, you already know the prodigal son story. But let me just use the Bible as a blueprint, as an opening to our spiritual toolbox. Now, I've said many weeks ago, God has given us tools for us to forgive, a tool for us to reach out, and at the same time for us to accept one another. The Bible has given us a blueprint opening our spiritual toolbox. We see the right tools. Now we look to the next step in our process. Rebuilding is a key component to bridging the gap and mending the relationships in our life that need extra work. Okay. This might come too personal to some of us, but let me just say it anyway. Sometimes the biggest gap that exists is between families. Sometimes the hardest person to reach out is our own family. Our brothers or sisters, mom and dad, sons, daughters. I mean, this is the biggest gap that we have to reach out. It's easier for us to reach out to a friend, to a classmate, to a coworker, when we're having issues, even reaching out to our family. And this is basically what the story is all about, the prodigal son. It's about family. God teaches us about this bridge building mentality through Jesus telling us the prodigal son. A boy goes off, where this is pretty much the summary of the story. A boy goes off and wastes all his father gives him a rock bottom. He decides to come home rather than his father being angry or frustrated with him. He throws a party. Okay, so let me just go through the passage here. Jesus continued, there was a man who had two sons. Okay, the elder and the younger. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. Okay, let me just pause there for a while. I think I've said this before. It's rude to ask for your inheritance when your dad or your parents is still alive or living, okay? It's basically rude. It's just telling, hey, you know what, I can't wait for you to die. Just give me part of my inheritance, okay? You can still live, but I want to enjoy my inheritance already. So that's borderline rudeness. Anyway, so he divided his property between them, the older brother and the younger brother. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there he squandered his wealth, meaning basically squandered his wealth in wild living. Party, drinking, party, drinking, party, drinking. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. How desperate? So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields. Okay, what was the work? To feed pigs. Okay. He sent him to his field to feed pigs. But that's the only work available. The worst thing is he longed to fill his stomach with his pods that the pigs were eating. And no one gave him anything. Okay. So he rock bottom. I mean, he was, okay. Another thing you have to remember though is, remember they are Jews. They are Jews. They are following the Mosaic law. And the Mosaic law says that you cannot touch pigs. You know why? Because pigs for them are unclean animals. You cannot eat, you cannot handle, you cannot even have anything about pigs. You know what? Out of desperation, he abandoned his values, he abandoned his conviction, and he found himself feeding pigs. And the worst is, see that person? He longed to eat what the pigs are eating. He longed, I mean, that tells us how rock bottom he is, because he wants to eat what the pigs are already eating. That's how hungry. Okay, anyway. So you get the picture. First thing I'd like to share is the wasting our possessions. I think I just would like to share something about possessions here. When we say possessions, we're talking about talents, gifts, money, wealth, resources that we have. And just like the prodigal son, we always have a tendency to waste our possessions. The decision that the prodigal son made led to Dorval not only for himself, okay, but for his family as well. Decisions, I repeat, decisions we make can feel good at the moment, but in the end, as we see it, will lead to heartache, not only for us, but also for those around you. Decisions that you make, I'm telling you right now, it's never been isolated. When you make a decision right now, it always affects, I don't know, for one reason or another, it always affects the people we loved. Palagi po yung kasama. If you decide one day you want to do this, you have to remember, it doesn't only affect you. It also affects the people around you. So if we waste our possession, if we waste our lives, if we waste our resources, that not only affects us, it also affects the people. We could have chosen differently how to use the gift or possession that God has given us. Or we decide to use it otherwise. I know you might be thinking, Pastor, I'm not connecting because this prodigal son squandered his wealth. But I'm not squandering my wealth. Okay? But are you using it for God? We have a notion that if I'm not squandering my resources, if I'm not squandering the gift and talents that I have, then the better question is, are you using it for God? Because remember, possessions were given to us by God to bless others as well. As God blessed us, we should bless others in return. And that's the cycle of blessings. That's the kingdom mentality. mentality is once you have possessed something, you keep it to yourself. That's human mentality. Kingdom mentality is once God blessed us, we bless others in return, and the cycle of blessings continues. We never run out. As long as we bless others, God will always make sure that you are blessed yourself. He who refreshes others, he himself will be refreshed. That is the promise of God. Now, sometimes we're not squandering, but we are not sharing as well. And that's a wasting of our possessions. Remember those, remember the parables of that talents? The master gave one 5 talents. Was it 5 or 10? 10 talents? Was it 5? I forgot. Was it 5? The other, no, it was 10. The other gave 5. The other gave 1. Okay? The 10, he used it and multiplied it. The 5 talents, he also used it and multiplied it. But the 1 talent, what happened to the 1 talent the master gave? He buried it. And so when the master came back and gave a report, the 10, hey master, you gave me 10, here's another 10. I used it. And then the one said, the 5 said, hey master, you gave me 5, here's another 5. I doubled it. Good and faithful servant. And then he said to the last one, nang bola pa, I don't remember the story, talaga nang bola pa, sabi niya, I know you, master, you worked hard for it, so I don't want to lose what you have given me, so what you have given me, I buried it under the ground, so that when you came back, you still have 1. And the master was so angry. You could have even just saved it in the bank, so at least it earned something, instead of you burying it that. Now those are our talents. Those are the talents and the gifts that God has given us. We should never bury it. We should always use it to bless others and to bless the kingdom of God. So, stop wasting what God has given us. We have been given opportunity to use the gifts we are given the tools and instructions. We have a choice to build a bridge and mend relationships, or we can waste our possessions and end up feeding pigs, longing to be fed with the pods with the pigs ate. This is not a sermon about giving. I repeat, this is not about sermon about giving. This is a sermon about using what God has given us. Okay? Use whatever God had. I'm pretty much sure you're already aware of what your gifts and talents are. I'm pretty much sure that you already know what God has given you. It's not a matter of discovering, am I good with it? No, you already know that you are good at it. It's a matter of using what God has given you for His kingdom. Do not waste what God has given you. Use it for His kingdom. See, the problem with the prodigal son is not only did he waste what was given to him, he squandered it. I mean, he has no longing of sharing it. He was so selfish. Just imagine the story. If he used his wealth to share and bless others, and when the famine hits, do you think someone of those whom he have helped will help him in return? Of course. That's human nature. You help me, I help you. But when he was squandering all of his wealth, he was so selfish, he was so self-centered, that when he hit rock bottom, no one even dared to help him because he was so selfish. Church, when God bless us, always think, this is not for me alone. Yes, you enjoy God's blessing, but that blessing is not for you alone. You have to learn to share it to others, especially to those who are in need. When we help one another, remember the gospel? God because Jesus was telling, how did you help me? I don't remember you helping me. Remember when someone visited you in the prison? Remember that story? When someone visited in your prison? That was me, God, that you were helping. When you gave a homeless, those who were hungry, a food to eat, you were helping me, the Lord. So what Jesus was telling was, when we help one another, when we help someone, we are already helping God, especially those who cannot help us in return. Never waste your possession. Never squander what God has given us. So let's go to the next verse here. When he came, okay, I like this. When he came to his senses, this is a prodigal son. When he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired men have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired men. So he got up, went to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him, and he was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. See, when we came into his senses, then he realized how much he'd lost, how much he is so sorry for what he has done. And then God gave him the strength to restore his relationship with his father. I mean, he was already willing, you know what? I'm willing to be rejected by my dad as long as I could eat. This is the essence of the passage. I am willing to be disciplined, reprimanded, kahit ano gagawin ko para lang ako makakain. Because in my father's house, there's so much food in there, and I would rather eat there than eat the pot. So he was willing to just humble himself and restore. He was already accepting that he will not be a son. He would just be a hard servant. But what happened was, the father saw him and had compassion. Okay, so what can we learn with this passage? First thing, do not waste your possession. Second is, it's time to review. Okay? It's time to review. But when he came to himself, as if to say, when he finally woke up, the prodigal son realized that while certain things he thought were what he wanted or needed, it only lasted for a moment. And that life with his father was actually good and right. So, okay, what I was trying to say in this passage is this. When he came to himself, or when he realized, two things I would like to share. People need to realize what they've lost in order for them to realize what the next action should be. I repeat, not until people realize, not until people woke up, not until people come into their senses, everything is dark for them. No matter how many texts you send, how many emails you send, how many calls you make, not until that person realized how much they've lost, how much they're so rock bottom, they won't even step up. Church, I know some of us are just so compassionate, and I'm with you. Sometimes, Pastor, tulungan naman natin to. Or Pastor, could we send something? Or could we... I'm with you in that aspect. I'm with you. Believe me, I'm with you. But remember this. Not until that person realized he needs God, he won't do anything for you. The Bible is very clear in the story. Not until he realized. I want this, I don't know how could I emphasize that passage. Change happens when people decide amongst them that they need something to better off themselves. I don't know. I'm a movie fanatic. I watch a lot of movies, but there was this, I forgot what it is. But there was one movie, in one of those dialogue, it says here, you could force a horse to a water, but you cannot force the horse to drink the water. What movie? I don't know what movie was that. I'll remember that later. But anyway, what the dialogue was telling is we could force a big mighty horse by the river, but we cannot force the horse to drink, not until the horse wants to drink. Okay? That saying goes all of us here. I'm not telling we're all horses here. No, I'm not telling that. We could pray for the people to change. We could pray for the people to surrender his life to God. We could pray, we could help, we could do a lot of things, but not until that person surrender his life to God. That remains a personal decision. Not everyone who goes to church are Christians. That's a sad story. Not everyone who comes in we will see in heaven. That's a sad story. Because everything is personal. It is a personal decision. I cannot decide for you if you want to accept Christ or not. I cannot decide for you if you want to go to heaven. It is something that is personal. The reason why I'm telling this, it has to be, the change has to come from us. If we really want to build bridge, if we really want to reach out, if we really want to forgive, that is a personal decision. We are not in the business of manipulating people. We are not in the business of deceiving people. We know. What I'm trying to say this morning is simple as it is. It is a personal decision. Whether you will forgive that person. It is a personal decision whether you will reach out to that person. It is a personal decision whether you will rebuild that relationship. It really boils down to your personal decision. And why is it? Why is it a personal decision? Because one day when you stand before God, and I'm telling you, all of us will stand before God. You cannot say, because of that, because of you, because of her. It is your personal decision. Time to rebuild, church. He decided to return and try to make things right. He rehearsed privately to himself how he would publicly apologize to his father. In many ways, the prodigal son gives us an example of repentance and confession. He literally turns from his ways and moves back to his father to righteousness. The prodigal son gave us a perfect example of how to ask for forgiveness. He says, Father, forgive me. I have done things against you and against God. That's exactly the words. So when we ask for forgiveness, okay? When we ask for forgiveness, we ask forgiveness to the person and ask forgiveness to God. When we offend someone, we do not only offend a person, we also offend God. We are all precious to God. We are so precious. We are treasures to God. So when someone offends or hurt God's treasure, God is also offended. That's why the prodigal said, Father, forgive me, I have sinned against you and against God. So whenever we ask for forgiveness, we also have the context of asking for forgiveness. I don't want to go into detail about forgiveness. Kasi, are we having issues asking for forgiveness? Kasi ako, madali ako mag-sorry. Ako madali mag-sorry. If you're married for almost 30 years, kay Lisa, ako, number one training ko yan. Number one training. Ask sorry. Ask sorry. Kahit hindi ko kasalanan. Even if it's not my fault, just for me to have a peaceful life, I will always say, sorry. And that is a good training. I learned to say, I'm sorry. It's so easy. But to some of us here, I know it's so hard to say, I am sorry. And I get you. We all came from different backgrounds. So why don't we spend the next few seconds here? Exercise tayo, ha? Exercise. Okay? Can all say, I am sorry. Okay? Sabay-sabay.
I am sorry.
Sabay-sabay nga eh. Sabay-sabay, okay? Okay. 1, 2, 3. I am sorry. I am sorry. Even though it's not your fault, learn to say, I am sorry. Even though it's someone's fault, learn to say, I am sorry. Because it's better to live your life peacefully than to live a regretful life. I was just reading this week, I think we have 86,000 seconds. I forgot. I have to count. Anyway, we have so much thousands of minutes in one day. 86,000, is it? 86,000 minutes in one day? Tama ba? Sige mga mathematicians dyan, ha? Anyway, we have something like 86,000 minutes in a day, okay? In a day. Talaga naman. Sige na, 24 times 60 ilan? 1,000? Okay, times 60.
46,400.
There you go, 86,000 seconds. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get. Okay, 86,000 plus seconds. Okay. Imagine if we have 86,000 seconds in one day, and out of that, 10 seconds, someone offended you, someone said something against you in social media, something really make your day so bad. And that was just 10 seconds out of 86,000. Will you let 10 seconds of your day ruin the rest of your day? Let's put it into money terms, okay? You have $86,000. And then somebody grabbed your $10. Anong gagawin mo? Hahabulin mo ba yun? Akin $10. Oh, tell me, well, if you have $86,000 and someone just grabbed $10 from your wallet, will you run? What would you do? What would you do? Hey, just let it go. Just let it go. You still have $86,390. Okay, what's $10? Imagine that every single day of our lives. Someone say, pangit mo ah. Ikaw naman. Ano sabi mo? And then you'll spend the rest of your life, ruined because someone told you you're... Diba? I know I'm trying to exaggerate things, but sometimes that's how we operate our day. 10 seconds determine how our mood for the day will be defined. Church, don't let it, okay? Just let it go. There are more important things in our lives than to be ruined by that comment, by that social media, by that comment from your coworker, even that comment from your sons. Uy, mami, ba't taba mo? Ikaw naman, nasaktan mo. Nakasaba rin, sabi ng nanay. Maraming mga anak ko. Don't let those 10 seconds ruin your day. Okay? Learn to rebuild your day. Okay? Okay, let me just go to... There may be mistakes we make that we can cause damage. It's important for us to recognize our mistakes and make things right. As much as we have the power to do so, it's important to follow the blueprints, learn the plans, and employ. I try to be an engineer here, but I'm trying not to be, okay? Kaya nga lang kung mayroong mga plano tayo, it's easier to just walk through God's plan for our lives. Every good and divine tool the Father has given us to use, okay? Learn to forgive, okay? Learn to reach out. Don't waste our possessions. Learn to rebuild what was lost. Learn to confess. Say sorry. Say sorry. I grew up in a family not saying sorry to one another. Ang hirap po yun. I never heard my dad, my mom say sorry to one another. And so we grew up never saying sorry to one another. But we became Christians. And no matter what the culture, what traditions, what families we have, I like to say sorry. Kahit na po, I'm not the one who is at fault. I learn to say sorry. I'm telling you this. It's much better to live a peaceful life than to live a regretful life. Learn to say sorry. Okay, last one. But the father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. Okay, the last point I'd like to share is start to celebrate. Okay. Men will learn to celebrate. I keep on telling this. Learn to celebrate so you'll have more to celebrate in life. Okay? Birthdays, kahit ano, learn to celebrate. Okay, celebrate. How do you define celebrate? How do you define celebrate? Ikaw lang? Ay, ako, I got my promotion today. Bibili ako ng cake. Bibili ako ng Jollibee. And then I would say, Lord, thank you for my promotion. Thank you. Ikaw lang. Celebrate ba yun? Celebrate ba yun? Is that a celebration? I mean, let me go back here. Okay. Quick, bring the best robe. 1, put it on him. 2, put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fatted cow and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and he's alive. I mean, we could define the celebration, or the purpose of the celebration, but those define celebrations. There's got to be something beyond yourself. There's got to be, when we celebrate, Pastor, gastos kasi. Okay, balik na naman tayo doon. Balik tayo sa gastos. You really don't have to spend much to celebrate. Let me say that, okay? You don't have to spend much to celebrate. It is in the heart if you want to celebrate. You could buy 10 pieces of $5 chicken at Costco, and it will cost you only $50, and you could feed 50 people. It's not a matter of money. It's a matter of the heart. If you think $50 is not worth to spend for the people I will invite in my lives to say and celebrate the goodness of God, it's not a money issue. It's a heart issue. So don't tell me you cannot celebrate because you don't want to spend money. Alam ba, there are only 3 kinds of people in this world. Alam ba yun? There are 3 kinds of people in the world. There are people, I already shared this. There are people who don't have money, but they act and project that they have money. I have $5 in my pocket, but I project I have $500. The way I speak, the way I command myself. Sometimes that's the first kind of people. No, there are people naman, we have lots of money, but they act as if they don't have money. Yung mga tao may pera naman, pero kung gumalaw sila, mukha silang walang pera. Those are the second kind of people. And what about the third kind of people? The third kind of people, may mga tao talagang mukhang pera. Yun lang po. Ganun ka na ulit. No matter what you do, yung mukha ko talagang mukhang pera. Church, let's learn to celebrate and let us not be aware of the money. Okay? If you remember the goodness of God, and come to think of this, when we share our blessings, the blessings return. I personally believe in that. When you share your blessings, it always returns 100-fold from the Lord. Kaya ba tayo maging mukhang pera? Saan ba tayo? Okay, let's celebrate. The Father God, He slammed the door, and He sat space and responded with it. You got what you asked for, now you figure it out. What a beautiful there is the mercy and grace shown in the Father. No matter what the Son did and pain He caused, He was welcome back. And not just welcome back, but we welcome back to an absolute celebration with everyone in His Father's household. A celebration, okay? A celebration. No matter how far we walk away, when we come to our senses and come home, Jesus is waiting with open arms to welcome us. Doesn't shame us with all of our wrongdoing, point a finger, and say, see, I told you. No, He will come out and restore us and help us back into the path of righteousness. That's the same way what we're supposed to do. When we reach out, when we build one another, we are no longer finger pointing. Okay? We do not become historical, okay? When we give people second chance, we give them a second chance. We do not remember the things this person has done horribly in the past. Okay? It's time to celebrate. Let's rebuild. If God has been so gracious to us, we should be also gracious towards one another. How do we respond when others come and seek reconciliation and forgiveness? The Father responds with a shocking amount of grace, love, and compassion. For many of us, it would be easy to respond in anger and frustration. This makes sense in the world, but it's not the way of Jesus. Okay? I think I've shared this story. I'd like to close with this story. There was one person in the church, this was many, many years ago, who has been a pain in my B-U-T-T, okay? Talaga naman po. Every time I'm a very patient person. Every time this person talked to me, this is many, many years ago in the old church, he always complains. Pastor, I think the praise team is too loud. Pastor, I think we should always do this. Pastor, I think we should always have this kind of teaching and preaching. Lahat po! Puro reklamo. Puro reklamo. All the complaints. Imagine, we have our Saturday night service. We have our service at Saturday night, not Sunday morning back then. So we end up at 9 o'clock. And then we have our, yeah, 7 and 9, yeah. And then we'll have our fellowship. So we're pretty much done by 10 o'clock p.m. Imagine this. Umaabot kami past midnight. Just the two of us discussing things about what happened in our worship service. Talaga naman po. It's just a pain. Talaga naman po. And so you know what? Good riddance. Umalis na. Umalis. Actually, no. Pastor Edwin, who was assistant pastor, talked to him and said, you know what? Hindi ka masaya, umalis ka na. Ang tapang ni pastor, no? Talagang sinabi niya in his face. Talaga, hindi ka masaya, umalis ka na. Hindi ka namin kailangan dito. Ako naman, I'm a very patient person. Talaga, I'm trying to win his back. But anyway, to make the story short, umalis na siya, and he went to, I'm telling you, if you're not happy with one church, you won't be happy in other churches. Okay? Kaninong cellphone yan?
Plus.
Okay. Okay na? Okay na tayo? Kalmado na. Let me just... Okay. So after many years, and then, finally, tumanda na siya, naging senior na siya at the same time. He settled in one church and he became a pastor of that church. Naging pastor siya. You know what? When we first saw each other, I invited him into this church anniversary. He was here and he was crying. He said, Pastor, I'm really sorry for what I've done to you those years. I was so immature. And then I realized now how much. So what I'm trying to say is this. We have to give people chances to grow. And that is very, very important. When you come to these senses, that makes all the difference. In the meantime, let's learn to wait, let's learn to pray, and let's learn to celebrate. Okay? And all God's people says? Amen. So, gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for the story of the prodigal son. It reminds us of who we are. We thank